The glass of lemonade was still beaded with cold condensation when Nancy Bell vanished from the town of Latrobe, Pennsylvania, population 8,132. The July night in 1966 was cloaked in the humid air typical of the East, the sky still and windless. At 9:32 p.m., Nancy's neighbor, Mrs. Ethel Moore, saw the 19-year-old step out of her turquoise Ford Fairlane, waving across the sun-scorched summer lawn. Nancy was returning a glass dish from a gathering, an item Mrs. Moore had kept in her home for 2 decades. The older woman watched the young girl's figure fade into the dim yellow glow of the porch light, her dark blonde hair the last flicker in the sultry night. What happened in the 3 hours that followed would haunt Latrobe for nearly half a century. Before diving into the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to stay updated on the latest cases. In mid-July 1966, Latrobe, a small town in Westmoreland County, Pennsylvania, maintained its slow, peaceful rhythm as it had for years. Serious crime was nearly non-existent, and everyone knew each other on the streets around the church and the general store. In this tranquil setting, Nancy Bell, 19, was the only daughter of a high school teacher and a local nurse. She had just graduated high school and was working part-time at a diner on Ligonier Street while awaiting college enrollment in the fall. Nancy lived simply, rarely went out at night, and was described by friends as cheerful, reliable, and without conflicts. On a mid-July evening, after her shift, she went home, showered, changed into a light floral dress, and told her mother she was meeting friends at the community center near the main street. Her mother clearly remembered the headlights of the turquoise Ford Fairlane lighting up as the car turned off the dirt road onto the highway, disappearing into the sunset. Nancy never returned. As night fell, the living room clock ticked past midnight, the front door still ajar, the porch light still on. The family began calling her friends. No one knew where she had gone or if she had met anyone on her way back. The next morning, as the sun rose, a driver crossing the Loyal Hannah Creek Bridge noticed a Ford Fairlane parked crookedly against the guardrail. Thinking it was broken down, he stopped, but peering through the window, he saw the keys still in the ignition, a purse and handbag on the seat, and no one inside. The scene prompted him to call the Bell family, who drove to the site. The grassy field around the bridge was still damp with dew, showing no signs of a struggle, only a few tire marks on the wet ground. They called their daughter's name repeatedly, but there was no response. The car's contents were intact, with no signs of robbery or collision. It seemed deliberately abandoned. After hours of searching the area with no trace of their daughter, the Bell family reported the case to the Latrobe police station. Police Chief Harold Denton received the report that morning. Experienced with traffic accidents and petty thefts, he rarely dealt with a disappearance without clear leads. Denton and 2 officers immediately went to the Loyal Hannah Creek Bridge, where Nancy's Ford Fairlane was found. The car remained in place, unlocked, keys in the ignition, with her purse, wallet, and personal documents on the passenger seat. The wheels were straight, the handbrake engaged, indicating the car was intentionally stopped. There were no signs of a crash or skid marks. After noting the overall condition, Denton cordoned off a 50-meter radius around the vehicle to preserve the scene. He observed the damp soil on both sides of the road and found several clear footprints. One set was small and narrow, consistent with a young woman's size. Another was larger, the heel's depth suggesting a heavier person or slower movement. The tracks led toward a small slope down to a grassy area near the riverbank, then vanished on the sandy shore. A temporary search team was mobilized. Officers split up to scour both sides of the bridge, while Denton sent others to check the main road connecting Latrobe to the western residential area. Another group searched the thin forest behind the bridge. No skid marks, brake tracks, or signs of another vehicle stopping nearby the previous night were found. Residents along the road reported hearing no unusual noises. From these initial observations, Denton concluded the case showed no signs of an accident. The car was intact, and no belongings were missing, ruling out robbery or suicide. He ordered photographs of the entire scene, documented the position of each footprint, and sketched a possible movement path for the victim. In his first report, he noted, "It is highly likely the missing person left the vehicle under undetermined circumstances, possibly coerced or lured." By noon, the search expanded to a 3-mile radius around the bridge. 5 officers, alongside local rescue personnel, used small boats and metal hooks to check the deeper sections of the Loyalhanna River. Another group combed open fields and trails along the forest edge for personal items that might have been left behind. As dusk approached, they found a single black shoe in the grass about 20 meters from the car. The shoe was dry, free of mud, possibly dropped during movement. Nearby, a small piece of fabric with a dark brown stain was also collected. Both items were sealed, labeled, and sent to the station. Denton concluded his case log with a summary: victim female, 19 missing, on the night of July 15th, vehicle found with no collision damage, personal belongings intact, cause and last location undetermined. By day's end, a preliminary report and scene photos were sent to the Westmoreland County Police Office for additional manpower and specialized equipment. With the limited evidence at hand, the official investigation began, starting from a silent scene with only an abandoned car and the unknown footprints of 2 people in the damp soil by the bridge. The initial evidence was brought to the Latrobe police station that evening for documentation and preliminary analysis. The black shoe found near the scene was identified as a common women's style, size 6, with evenly worn soles, showing no signs of a struggle or broken straps. Inside were traces of fine sand and a few dry grass blades, matching the vegetation around the Loyalhanna Creek Bridge. Chief Denton ordered photographs of the evidence and a comparison with Nancy Bell's belongings at home. Her mother confirmed Nancy owned a similar pair, but couldn't be certain it was hers due to the common design. The fabric fragment with the dark brown stain was carefully sealed. A benzodine test at the lab indicated human blood, but the sample was too small to determine the blood type. The fabric's torn seam suggested it was ripped from a larger piece. Denton recorded the findings and requested the sample be sent to the county lab for detailed analysis. The search team also found a metal makeup compact in the grass, engraved with the initials VA. The exterior paint was scratched, but faint pink powder remained inside. This item drew attention because, according to family, Nancy rarely carried personal makeup. It was sealed and labeled as evidence number 3. On the way back, Denton ordered soil samples collected from the areas where the shoe, fabric, and compact were found to compare with mud on the car. At the station, all evidence was handed to the forensic technician for detailed logging. During the process, an officer dusted the Ford Fairlane's interior for fingerprints. Most belonged to Nancy on the steering wheel, driver's door, and rearview mirror. However, 2 unidentified prints were found on the exterior passenger door handle and the edge of the passenger seat. These were photographed, enlarged, and filed. Since a national fingerprint database wasn't available at the time, comparisons were limited to Westmoreland County, yielding no matches. Technicians also examined the victim's purse and wallet. Cash, documents, photos, and a lipstick were untouched, showing no signs of theft. The most recent gas receipt, dated the day before her disappearance, indicated no long trips. Some damp soil was found in the trunk, likely from earlier. From the scene data, Denton drafted a preliminary conclusion: no robbery motive. Victim left the vehicle under unclear circumstances, possible presence of another individual at the scene. Evidence requires further analysis for relevance. He sent the report and evidence list to the Westmoreland County Police Office, requesting forensic support. While awaiting results, Denton ordered detailed photographs of the shoe, compact, and fabric from multiple angles and a diagram mapping their locations for the case file. He also requested copies of all fingerprints and soil samples for testing, emphasizing dry storage and protection from direct light. Late that evening, as the evidence was organized in the sealed cabinet, Denton reviewed the first day's notes. On his desk, Black and white photos showed the car alone by the bridge, the shoe tilted nearby. In the day's final report, he added, "The connection between the three collected items is unclear, but their presence at the time of the disappearance is highly likely." Initial evidence suggested the victim did not leave the area willingly, with at least one other individual involved, whose traces remained unidentified. In the following days, Chief Denton focused on reconstructing Nancy Bell's timeline and movements on the night she vanished. He requested her work records from the diner to confirm her shift's end. The log showed she left at 7:15 p.m. on July 15th. From then until the car was found near the Loyal Hannah Creek Bridge was under 4 hours, and every detail in that window needed clarification. The investigation team contacted individuals who might have seen Nancy that evening. 3 co-workers confirmed she left the diner in a normal mood, mentioning no specific plans beyond meeting friends at the community center. A friend, Carol Jennings, living near St. Vincent's Church, said Nancy called earlier that day, mentioning she'd stopped by a summer event at the town hall. Police visited the Latrobe Community Center, where a farewell party for local youth had taken place that night. The guest list showed about 30 attendees, mostly local teens. Denton and 2 officers interviewed each, meticulously noting their arrival and departure times. Many recalled Nancy arriving around 8 p.m., wearing a light floral dress, chatting cheerfully with no unusual behavior. She left before the event ended, around 9:30 p.m. A witness, John Miller, reported seeing Nancy leave with an older woman with brown hair, wearing a light jacket. When pressed, he described her as the new neighbor on Main Street. This drew attention, as she was the only person seen with Nancy at the last known moment. Verification identified her as Vivian Arlo, 35, renting in a residential area 3 blocks from Nancy's home, having moved from Ohio earlier that year. Town records confirmed her identity. Denton sent officers to the rental to verify. The landlord said Vivian lived alone, kept to herself, and worked part-time at a laundromat on Lincoln Street. He noted that on July 15th, she returned late, seeming rushed, carrying a large bag. Police returned to the community center for further corroboration. Another friend of Nancy recalled her mentioning a new neighbor she wanted to ask about renting. Vivian was seen talking with Nancy in the parking lot for a few minutes. No one saw them after they left the area. Based on the statements, Denton reconstructed the timeline. Nancy left home around 7:45 p.m., arrived at the community center around 8 o'clock, left with Vivian Arlo around 9:30, and then vanished. The drive from the center to the Loyal Hannah Creek Bridge took 10 minutes. The window between 9:30 and when the car was found was critical. The team revisited the scene, mapping the likely route. Per the topographic map, the shortest path from the center to the bridge passed Vivian's rental area, then turned onto a small road by the river. Denton marked this route on the map as the most likely path Nancy took before disappearing. He ordered a canvass of residents along the route for anyone who saw the Ford Fairlane in that time frame. A delivery truck driver reported crossing the bridge around 10 p.m. and seeing a light-colored car parked on the roadside with headlights on, but no one inside. This matched the car's position and condition when found the next morning. From the collected information, Denton issued a preliminary conclusion. Nancy Bell was last seen in the Latrobe Community Center parking lot, leaving with Vivian Arlo. Her car was found hours later at the Loyal Hannah Creek Bridge, about 3 miles away. The short time and distance suggested the incident occurred quickly in a familiar area. All data was updated in the case file, with a movement map, estimated timeline, and key witness list. In the report's final note, Denton wrote, "The last person confirmed to have spoken with Nancy Bell was Vivian Arlo. An interview and review of this individual's movements that night are necessary." After identifying Vivian Arlo as the last person seen with Nancy Bell, Police Chief Harold Denton immediately began investigating her background. Town records showed that Vivian Arlo, 35, originally from Ohio, arrived in Latrobe in early 1966 and rented a small house in the residential area west of Main Street. Her temporary residency form listed her occupation as a laundromat worker at Bright Cleaners on Lincoln Street, a small family-run business. Vivian lived alone, with no close relatives or friends in the area. A copy of her Ohio judicial record revealed a 1963 civil lawsuit over a rental contract dispute, but no criminal history or serious charges. Before moving to Latrobe, she worked part-time at another laundromat in Akron. Residency checks confirmed she had never been married and had no dependents. When contacted, the owner of Bright Cleaners described Vivian as reserved, punctual, typically finishing her shift at 5 p.m. and going straight home. She was polite, neat, and caused no conflicts. However, some coworkers noted she always carried a large handbag and never let anyone touch it. Based on this information, Denton arranged a direct interview. The interview took place at the Latrobe police station on the afternoon of July 18, 1966. Vivian arrived on time, neatly dressed, speaking calmly. When asked about Nancy Bell, she claimed to know her only through brief greetings as neighbors, denying any private conversations or outings together. She stated that on the evening of July 15, around 8:30 p.m., she was at home reading a magazine before going to bed early for work the next day. When Denton asked about the community center event, Vivian seemed surprised, insisting she had never been there. However, this contradicted witness statements from the event, with at least 2 people confirming Vivian's presence and her conversation with Nancy in the parking lot. Denton noted the discrepancy in the record without confronting her immediately. He observed Vivian's calm demeanor with no signs of nervousness, but her answers were brief and lacked detail. After the interview, she requested to return to work, stating she was not involved with that girl's situation. The police allowed her to leave, but instructed her not to leave town during the investigation. The next day, Denton sent an officer to the laundromat to verify Vivian's work hours on the day of the disappearance. The owner confirmed she worked the morning shift, leaving at 5 p.m. without returning that evening. A coworker recalled seeing her at a nearby market around 6 p.m. buying small items. After that, her whereabouts were unknown. When police inspected Vivian's rental home, they found it tidy, with closed windows and drawn curtains. On the vanity table were several empty perfume bottles, a few lipsticks, and a makeup compact, similar to the one found at the scene. But without engraved initials, these items were documented and photographed for the case file. In the closet, clothes were neatly arranged, with no signs of hasty washing or stain removal. However, on a hook near the back door, a pair of black high-heeled shoes, size 7, had dried mud on the soles matching the clay soil around the Loyalhanna Creek Bridge. Denton ordered the shoes seized for comparison. Vivian explained the mud came from a previous walk through a nearby forest, denying being at the car's location. When asked about the VA initials on the compact found at the scene, she suggested it could be a common brand, as many people in the area buy the same one. Her responses raised Denton's suspicions, but lacked sufficient legal grounds for detention. In his preliminary report, he listed inconsistencies between Vivian's statements and the collected evidence, her evening timeline, presence at the event, and denial of attending the Latrobe Community Center. Additionally, the soil on her shoes matched the color and texture of samples from around the Ford Fairlane. All information was sent to the county police office for cross-referencing with pending forensic results. In the report's conclusion, Denton noted, Vivian Arlo, 35, originally from Ohio, residing in Latrobe since early this year, is the last person linked to victim Nancy Bell per witness accounts. Her statements conflict with timeline and witness data. Further verification of her detailed schedule and the origin of personal items potentially matching scene evidence is needed. Immediately after interviewing Vivian Arlo and seizing suspicious items, Chief Denton ordered a thorough examination of Nancy Bell's Ford Fairlane to determine if it was used or moved after her disappearance. The car was sealed and towed to the Latrobe Police Department's vehicle lot. The inspection occurred in a secure warehouse, witnessed by a forensic technician and a Westmoreland County representative. Every step was photographed and documented. First, the team examined the exterior, no new scratches, intact doors and windows, and no signs of forced entry. The headlights and taillights functioned normally. The gas tank was over half full, and no leaks were detected. The tires showed no unusual wear, only a thin layer of mud matching the soil around the Loyalhanna Creek Bridge, suggesting the car hadn't been driven far after stopping. Inside, technicians noted a faint smell of gasoline mixed with makeup powder and the damp odor typical of a river. The floor and front seats had undisturbed, fine dust, indicating no regular occupants after that point. However, under ultraviolet light, a small dark stain on the driver's seat edge appeared to be dried blood. A sample was taken and tested with benzidine, confirming human hemoglobin. Though limited, the sample was sufficient for county lab analysis, which identified it as blood type O, matching Nancy Bell's. On the passenger seat mat, a long, dark brown hair was found. Compared to Nancy's lighter hair, it was sealed separately. Technicians also found a trace of deep red lipstick on the rim of a small water bottle in the door pocket. This lipstick differed from the shade Nancy typically used, as described by her mother, and found in her purse. These discrepancies caught Denton's attention, suggesting a second person's presence in the car. The dashboard had overlapping fingerprints, mostly Nancy's, but two unidentified prints were found on the gearshift and passenger door handle. Due to database limitations, comparisons were confined to Westmoreland County, with no matches found. The trunk contained no luggage, only a thin layer of soil and a few dry grass blades in the left corner. Soil samples were taken to compare with those from Vivian Arlo's shoes and the bridge area. Preliminary analysis indicated the soil's color and texture matched, containing small amounts of minerals specific to the Loyalhanna region, though further testing was needed for confirmation. A small scuff mark on the rear door paint was noted, but not deep enough to indicate a collision. Mechanical analysis confirmed the car was fully operational, with the engine starting normally, ruling out a breakdown as the reason for stopping. Denton noted the arrangement of items inside. Nancy's purse was open, its zipper undone, with a lipstick fallen onto the passenger seat and her wallet on the floor near the gas pedal. These details suggested someone may have searched the car after Nancy left. The driver's door was slightly ajar, but locked smoothly. The key in the ignition was in the off position. Unlike the habit of someone leaving in haste, a technician suggested the car was deliberately stopped, and someone else likely opened the door, performed a brief action, and left without restarting the engine. Summarizing the findings, Denton wrote in the technical report, "No evidence of theft or collision. The car was intentionally stopped, possibly used briefly by another person. Interior signs indicate the presence of at least one other individual besides the victim. All blood, hair, and fingerprint samples were sent to the Westmoreland County Lab for storage and comparison." The detailed report, including car photos, evidence locations, and blood type results, was attached to the case file. Denton signed off with a note, "Recommend continued testing of related samples to identify the hair and lipstick's owner. Clarify who was the last person in the Ford Fairlane after Nancy Bell left the scene." After completing the technical inspection of the Ford Fairlane and finding evidence suggesting a second person's involvement, Chief Denton shifted focus to an expanded search effort. He believed that if Nancy Bell was attacked or encountered trouble near the Loyalhanna Creek Bridge, a thorough terrain sweep could uncover additional clues. Over the next week, Denton mobilized all available Latrobe police personnel and requested support from the Westmoreland County office. A search team of over 20 officers, along with local militia and volunteers, was divided into sectors. 2 tracking dogs from Pittsburgh were brought in to assist. The primary focus was a 3-mile stretch of riverbank westward, connecting to the low forests around town. The search was conducted daily, starting at dawn and ending at dusk. The rescue team moved in a fan formation, marking each section and collecting items like fabric scraps, personal belongings, or tire marks. County divers checked the riverbed and deep waters near the bridge, but found no body or new evidence. A state police light aircraft conducted low-altitude flights to survey remote areas, with no results. After nearly 10 days of continuous searching, the bridge area was deemed clear of suspicious signs. Denton shifted focus to the western residential area where Vivian Arlo lived. He noted multiple inconsistencies in her statements, particularly her denial of attending the community center the night Nancy disappeared. To verify, Denton had her daily activities monitored for a week. Reports showed she went to work on time, left in the afternoon, often bought groceries at a nearby market, and returned to her rental without interacting with others. However, a neighbor reported something unusual at night. In a brief interview, the neighbor claimed to have seen Vivian carrying a shovel to the backyard around midnight, a few days after Nancy's disappearance. He noted it was dark, but a yard light revealed her silhouette bending over the garden. When pressed, he said he heard no loud noises, only saw her stand for a while before returning inside. This prompted the team to search Vivian's backyard. The next day, police arrived with a limited warrant to inspect the soil. They used metal probes and dug 3 spots with fresh soil, but found only roots and pebbles. No signs of burial or recent soil disturbance were noted. The technical report confirmed uniform soil with no foreign objects or voids. Still, the neighbor's statement was documented, and the area was photographed for the case file. During the search, officers noted the garden had roses and daisies, with evenly tilled soil and some areas covered in fine sand, as if recently leveled, Vivian explained. She tended the garden at night because it was too hot during the day. Her response was recorded, but Denton remained uneasy. After the search, no direct evidence warranted holding her. Vivian resumed normal activities, working at the laundromat and occasionally visiting the market or post office. During this time, Denton ordered indirect surveillance, but no further suspicious behavior was observed. However, monitoring was disrupted by the town's limited budget and other priority cases. In early September, Vivian abruptly quit her job at the laundromat, telling the owner she needed to visit family in Ohio. 2 days later, she left Latrobe by car without providing a new address. The landlord confirmed she paid her rent in full and moved out at night. When police checked, the house was empty, with most personal items gone. Left on the table were old bills, a newspaper, and a wilted rose plant. Denton ordered a report documenting Vivian Arlo's departure, updating her status to location unknown. Efforts to trace her in the surrounding area yielded no results. The search for the victim also stalled due to a lack of new leads. In the final summary for this phase, Denton stated, "After over 3 weeks of searching with police, volunteers, and tracking dogs, no body or new evidence related to Nancy Bell was found. The neighbor's statement is valuable, but insufficient to prove criminal activity. Suspect Vivian Arlo has left the area, destination unknown. The case remains open, awaiting further information." From that point, the investigation entered a holding phase, with the only outcome being the parallel disappearance of the victim and the woman who was the last clue from that mid-July evening. After the search within Latrobe yielded no concrete results, Police Chief Harold Denton finalized the collected evidence for transfer to the state laboratory in Harrisburg. The items included the blood-stained fabric, soil samples from the scene, the dark brown hair found in the car, and mud from the soles of suspect Vivian Arlo's shoes. All were properly sealed and handed over to the state's Chemical Analysis Division with a request to determine blood type, fabric origin, and potential matches with the victim or suspect. The lab report was returned in late December 1966, nearly 5 months after Nancy Bell's disappearance. According to the results, the blood sample on the fabric tested positive for human hemoglobin, but the quantity was too small to identify the blood type accurately. The lab noted that protein denaturation due to unstable storage temperatures skewed quantitative results, concluding only that it was human blood type undetermined. The soil from Vivian Arlo's shoes and the scene shared similar mineral characteristics, but analysis of quartz crystals and organic impurities showed they could not be definitively matched, as the soil type was common across the Latrobe area. The dark brown hair's cuticle structure and melanin pigment indicated it belonged to an adult female, not Nancy Bell, but DNA technology was unavailable at the time, so the owner could not be identified. The lab noted the hair was not naturally shed but broken, suggesting it may have been caught or pulled during movement. The fourth item, the fabric, did not match the color, material, or weave of clothing provided by Nancy's family. It was a cotton synthetic blend, while Nancy's clothes were pure cotton. The tear pattern suggested it was ripped from the inside out, but there was insufficient evidence to determine the cause. The makeup compact engraved with VA contained common cosmetic powder sold in stores, with no traceable buyer. No intact fingerprints were found on the compact due to its scratched, dusty metal surface. The Harrisburg report concluded, insufficient data to prove a direct link between the samples and the victim. The blood is human but cannot be confirmed as Nancy Bell's. The hair is not the victim's but its owner is unidentified. No evidence clearly indicates a crime scene. Upon receiving the results, Denton held a meeting with the case officers. All were disappointed, as months of effort yielded no new leads from the chemical evidence. He reviewed the entire case file, from witness statements to scene diagrams, but all leads hit a dead end. Nancy Bell left the community center, was seen with Vivian Arlo, then vanished. Her car was abandoned with no signs of struggle or robbery. The police lacked legal grounds to pursue Vivian further, as she was not charged, and no direct evidence linked her to a crime. In the December report to the Westmoreland County office, Denton wrote, after receiving the Harrisburg lab results, there is no basis for continued active investigation. All current leads lack conclusive evidence. Per protocol, the case was reclassified as suspicious disappearance. No suspect identified, meaning a suspicious missing person case without a confirmed suspect or crime scene. The file, numbered 66M47, was sealed in the Latrobe Police Station's storage. A copy was sent to the Westmoreland County Central Archive for long-term preservation. In his final 1966 conclusion, Denton noted privately in his work log, Nancy Bell's location remains unknown, with no evidence indicating whether she is alive or deceased. The file must be kept open for future information. The case was officially closed in the active case management system. All evidence was placed in sealed boxes, clearly labeled with dates and signatures. During handover, Denton instructed the technician to note the storage location in the Westmoreland County Archive in case reopening was needed. After completing the formalities, he sent a summary report to the Pennsylvania State Police, concluding the initial investigation phase of the Nancy Bell case. In the summary, he wrote a single line, "All efforts conducted in 1966 yielded no concrete results. The reason for the disappearance remains undetermined." From early 1967, after receiving the final Harrisburg lab report, Nancy Bell's disappearance was officially categorized as an unresolved case. No new witnesses emerged, and no additional evidence was found in expanded searches. In the early years, Chief Denton periodically reviewed the case file, hoping to connect it to similar incidents in the region, but all efforts led nowhere. Latrobe returned to its quiet rhythm, with residents gradually mentioning Nancy Bell less, except for her family, who placed a small bouquet at the Loyal Hannah Creek Bridge each year. By the late 1960s, Denton transferred and later retired after over 20 years of service. The investigators involved in the case also left the force, carrying memories of an unsolved mystery. Nancy Bell's file remained in a steel cabinet in the Latrobe Police Station basement, containing over 300 pages of reports, scene photos, and sealed evidence. From 1967 to 1980, no significant investigative actions occurred. Whenever a missing person was reported in the area, police compared descriptions to Nancy's file, but no matches were found. Her name occasionally surfaced in conversations among new officers as the town's first unresolved case. In the early 1980s, personnel changes and storage updates prompted a review of old files. The Latrobe police transferred some older cases, including Nancy Bell's 66 M47, to the Westmoreland County Archive to free up space, stamped as inactive case, unresolved. In late 1983, Lieutenant Mark Rourke, assigned to the county's General Investigations Unit, was tasked with reviewing unresolved cases from the 1960s. An experienced investigator from the Pennsylvania State Police, Rourke was known for his meticulousness and patience. Upon opening Nancy Bell's file, he noted its well-preserved condition, clear scene photos, properly sealed evidence, and signatures from Denton and the forensic technician. In a March 4, 1984, report, Rourke wrote, "No progress since 1966. The file is complete, but lacks scientific data. The evidence is well preserved and could be analyzed with new technology." He reviewed all interview transcripts, focusing on the unidentified dark brown hair. At the time, forensic journals began mentioning genetic material analysis, though still experimental. Rourke added to his internal report, "If DNA technology is applied to criminal forensics, the hair in the Nancy Bell case could be critical." However, with DNA testing unavailable and county budgets limited, the case could not be reopened. After the review, he resealed the file, updated its archive code, and transferred it to the Greensburg Central Evidence Storage. Per regulations, it would be reviewed every 10 years or with new information. In the final handover report, Rourke signed and noted, "Case 66 M47 retained for potential future forensic review." This became the only marker in over 2 decades of silence. In the years that followed, the Nancy Bell case was mentioned in training sessions as a classic example of pre-technology investigative limitations. Occasionally, young officers inventorying evidence encountered the sealed box labeled Nancy Bell, Loyal Hannah Creek, July 1966, on its yellowed tag, but none had authority to open it. By late 1984, all documents were cataloged in Westmoreland County's long-term unresolved missing person files, sealed with a faint red stamp. In the final summary for this phase, Lieutenant Rourke wrote briefly, "No new witnesses or evidence. Initial investigators have retired. The file remains intact and could support analysis if genetic testing is implemented." After this note, the Nancy Bell case entered complete stasis, existing only as a silent file in a cold archive, awaiting a day when technology could answer questions left open for nearly 2 decades. By 2008, over 4 decades after Nancy Bell's case was shelved as unresolved, Pennsylvania established the Cold Case Unit, headquartered in Harrisburg, under the State Attorney General's office. Its mission was to review unsolved missing person or homicide cases from the 1950s to 1980s, particularly those with preserved biological evidence. The unit's creation coincided with advancements in DNA analysis and modern microevidence techniques. At the Westmoreland County Evidence Storage Center, a team of technicians collaborated with the new unit to review old files. Of over 100 cases, only about 20 met the criteria: intact sealed evidence, undamaged, and potentially containing human DNA. Among them, the box labeled 6647, Nancy Bell, missing person, was marked in red ink. Technicians noted that the box retained its 1984 seal, with clear signatures from Lieutenant Mark Rourke and Chief Harold Denton. This integrity prioritized the Nancy Bell file for testing with next-generation DNA analysis. Forensic technician Lena Porter, 32, recently transferred from the state's Crime Scene Analysis Unit, led the review. In an April 11, 2008, internal report, Porter wrote, "The goal is to assess DNA recovery from evidence stored for over 40 years. Priority is given to hair, blood, and fabric samples sealed in dry, light-free condition." On April 15, Porter and 2 colleagues opened the Greensburg archive, inventorying the Nancy Bell evidence. The metal box contained 3 sealed bags, one with the dark-stained fabric, one with the dark brown hair, and one labeled blood sample, driver's seat. All were preserved in moisture-resistant paper, showing no signs of decay. Porter photographed each bag, noted seal numbers, and requested permission from the county prosecutor's office to break the seals for DNA sampling. Per new regulations, all actions were recorded and stored in an electronic case system for absolute transparency. In an April 22, 2008, request to unseal, Porter wrote, "Based on the well-preserved evidence and potential for viable DNA, we request permission to extract micro-samples from the hair fabric and blood for expanded witness DNA testing." The county chief prosecutor approved the request within 3 days, paving the way for the case's most critical analysis. By early June 2008, after sampling and resealing the originals, all items were sent to the Pennsylvania State Laboratory in Harrisburg, where STR short tandem repeat DNA analysis was applied. This technique identifies short repeating gene sequences in human cells, offering high accuracy even for degraded samples. The analysis team, led by Dr. John Melville, under cold case unit supervision, processed the samples in a sterile lab, assigning unique identifiers to the blood, hair, and fabric. DNA extraction took over 2 weeks. The blood sample, though old, retained over 65% integrity, allowing partial gene structure recovery. The hair, with its root follicle, provided mitochondrial DNA for comparison. The fabric yielded trace epithelial cell DNA from 2 distinct female sources. The dual female DNA finding immediately caught the lab's attention. The data was entered into CODIS, the National DNA Database linking states, for comparison. After multiple runs, results confirmed one DNA source matched the blood sample from the driver's seat, identified as Nancy Bell's. The second source, from the fabric's epithelial cells and the dark brown hair, did not match the victim's DNA. CODIS reported a hit, indicating a match with an existing criminal database profile from another state. After cross-checking, the Harrisburg lab received information from the Federal Criminal Data Office. The DNA matched a profile from Maryland, belonging to a woman named Vivian Arlo, born in 1931, then 72 years old. Her DNA was logged in 2005 from a civil investigation requiring mandatory sampling. The match was confirmed across all 13 standard STR loci, with a statistical accuracy of 1 in 10 billion. The lab's official report stated, the second DNA sample from the 1966 Nancy Bell case evidence fully matches the DNA profile MD 1573, identified as female individual Vivian Arlo, currently residing in Maryland. The results were immediately sent to the Pennsylvania State Police and Westmoreland County Sheriff's Office for validation. On August 12, 2008, the Cold Case Unit held an internal meeting in Harrisburg to assess the legal implications. Technician Lena Porter presented the process from unsealing to matching, confirming compliance with evidence preservation protocols. The report was deemed admissible for criminal proceedings. This marked the first time the Cold Case Unit identified a match from evidence over 40 years old. In a 42-page summary to the State Attorney General, Porter wrote, "The hair and epithelial cells indicate 2 female individuals in the evidence. One is confirmed as victim Nancy Bell, the other matches the DNA profile of Vivian Arlo, born 1931 Maryland." A copy was sent to the Westmoreland County Sheriff's Office with a formal recommendation to reopen the Nancy Bell case under new case number cold case hash PA0804. Retired Lieutenant Mark Rourke was invited to verify the original evidence's integrity. In his statement, he confirmed all seals, signatures, and documents matched the 1984 records, ensuring an unbroken chain of custody and a solid legal basis for reopening. After receiving the report, the state police forwarded the information to the Criminal Investigation Command to coordinate with Maryland authorities to verify Vivian Arlo's current address. An August 25 internal memo stated, DNA results confirm Vivian Arlo's presence at the Nancy Bell disappearance scene. Recommend re-evaluating all original scene and witness data. Concurrently, the Cold Case Unit requested a comparison of Vivian Arlo's criminal file photos with 1966 images from Latrobe's residency records. Facial features and age similarities confirmed it was the same person. The initial phase summary, sent to the state prosecutor's office in early September 2008, concluded, biological evidence from the Nancy Bell disappearance contains DNA from two female individuals, one the victim, the other fully matching Vivian Arlo's profile. This provides sufficient legal grounds to reopen the criminal investigation, determine Arlo's role and actions at the 1966 scene. An internal notice was issued to investigative units. The Nancy Bell case was reactivated to verify the connection between the victim and Arlo, gather additional evidence, and clarify the cause of Nancy's disappearance. For many in the field, this was a landmark example of DNA technology overcoming time, reviving a case thought lost to history. In the meeting's final note, technician Lena Porter wrote, "This result not only recovers data from 42-year-old evidence, but reaffirms the value of meticulous preservation. The evidence, silent for too long, now speaks." From that point, the Nancy Bell case was officially reinstated on Pennsylvania's active investigation list, with direct orders from the state police to review all files, witnesses, and scene data related to Vivian Arlo. After DNA results confirmed Vivian Arlo's presence at the scene of Nancy Bell's disappearance, the Pennsylvania State Police directed the Cold Case Unit to conduct a field survey in Latrobe, focusing on the location where Vivian lived in 1966. According to old residency records, the house was on Main Street in a quiet residential area, now changed hands multiple times. The investigation team was granted access to the property under a search warrant approved by the Westmoreland County Court in late September 2008. The warrant permitted a survey of the backyard, garden, and old shed, the area where a 1966 witness reported seeing Vivian with a shovel at night. The house was now dilapidated, and the backyard had been converted into a small lawn by the new owner. However, the 1966 scene map drawn by Chief Harold Denton, preserved in the case file, helped the team reconstruct the original layout. A narrow path from the back door led to a rose garden, about 8 meters from a wooden fence. Forensic technician Lena Porter led the survey, coordinating with 2 state geophysical specialists using ground-penetrating radar (GPR), a technology that detects changes in soil density and structure without prior excavation. During the initial survey, they divided the garden into 6 2x2-meter squares. The GPR moved slowly across the surface, sending radar signals into the ground and recording responses. Most areas showed consistent signals, except for a narrow strip in the southwest corner, where uneven reflections indicated a small cavity at a depth of about 90 centimeters. The data was recorded and marked with wooden stakes. Porter ordered 2 additional scans to confirm, yielding similar results: a small oval-shaped void, approximately 1.2 meters long and half a meter wide. The preliminary report noted an anomaly possibly due to digging or burial. The next day, the team returned with a forensic excavation unit. The work proceeded cautiously, with soil layers removed, using trowels and small shovels. At about 60 centimeters deep, they found darker soil mixed with severed root remnants, indicating prior digging and refilling. At 80 centimeters, technicians struck a hard object. Clearing the surrounding soil revealed a long, yellowish bone. Work halted immediately for documentation and filming. The excavation continued under forensic protocol, supervised by a Harrisburg medical examiner. When fully uncovered, a nearly intact human skeleton was found lying on its left side, head facing the fence. The right arm was bent across the chest, with a small ring still on a finger. Nearby was a rusted tin box containing a decayed leather-strap women's watch and fabric scraps. All items were photographed, numbered, and sealed. The skeleton was sent to the state lab for detailed analysis. The initial field report stated, adult female remains, estimated height 1.65 meters, consistent with Nancy Bell's description at the time of disappearance. Position and location suggest intentional burial, not natural disaster or erosion. The watch and ring were cleaned for identification. Under the rust, the ring's inner band was engraved with NB, matching the victim's initials. The watch, despite its decayed strap, displayed an Elgin brand face, similar to one Nancy wore in her graduation photo. Bone, tooth, and fabric samples were separated for analysis. A forensic dentist compared Nancy Bell's dental records from a local clinic with the remains, finding a perfect match in 3 lower left molars, including a distinctive amalgam filling rare for the time. The official report, dated November 12, 2008, stated, based on dental characteristics and personal items, the remains excavated at 237 Main Street, Latrobe, belonged to Nancy Bell. Missing since July 1966. When the results reached the cold case unit, the team viewed it as a case breakthrough. After over 40 years, Nancy's fate was confirmed. Denton's early notes about Vivian Arlo's backyard, once speculative, were now validated. Lena Porter finalized a 57-page report, including GPR data, scene photos, and excavation records, sent to the Pennsylvania State Police and Westmoreland Prosecutor's Office. In her conclusion, she wrote, "The burial site shows signs of manual manipulation, with timing consistent with the victim's disappearance. The watch and ring confirm identity. Dental analysis solidifies victim identification. The 1966 disappearance is now confirmed as a deliberate homicide." The discovery ended over 4 decades of speculation, opening a new chapter in the investigation with the first concrete evidence found in the garden of the woman suspected from the start. After dental analysis confirmed the remains from Vivian Arlo's former backyard belonged to Nancy Bell, the Pennsylvania State Police shifted the case to suspect verification. DNA evidence clearly linked Vivian to the 1966 scene, but to close the investigation, they needed to confirm she was alive and locate her. The cold case unit, with the Mid-Atlantic FBI office, began tracking. Federal records showed Vivian Arlo, born February 14, 1931, resided near Baltimore, Maryland suburbs. Local medical records indicated recent treatment at a private senior care facility, matching her 2005 Maryland criminal database DNA from a civil investigation. In early December 2008, the Pennsylvania State Police sent a small team to Maryland for identity and residency verification. The team included Lena Porter, representing the cold case unit, and 2 criminal investigators from Harrisburg, coordinating with the Baltimore Police Department and local prosecutor's office. Initial tracking confirmed Vivian lived in a small house in Anne Arundel County, about 20 miles from central Baltimore. She was legally registered, lived alone, had no immediate family, and received a pension. Due to the case's sensitivity and to protect evidence, the team conducted discreet surveillance for 2 weeks. 2 agents, posing as environmental service workers, set up long-range cameras to record her movements and daily habits. Reports noted she rarely left home, only visiting a nearby market and returning before noon. On December 21, during routine trash collection, the team retrieved a bag Vivian placed outside. It was sent to the state forensic lab for viable DNA samples. Items like a toothbrush, tissues, and a plastic cup, potentially containing epithelial cells or saliva, were selected for comparison. DNA extraction was completed by early January 2009. Analysis confirmed the trash DNA matched the second female DNA from the 1966 evidence, achieving a 13/13 STR marker match with a 1 in billions accuracy, confirming no error. The January 5 report from the Harrisburg lab stated, DNA from the December 21, 2008, trash of female individual, Vivian Arlo, fully matches the 1966 evidence DNA. The report was sent to the Pennsylvania Prosecutor's Office and the FBI Regional Office. With DNA confirming Vivian's presence at the crime scene, the cold case unit drafted a federal arrest warrant with 2 preliminary charges, second-degree murder and concealing a body. The warrant was submitted to the Middle District of Pennsylvania Federal Court on January 12, 2009, requesting coordination with Baltimore PD for execution. While awaiting approval, agents continued monitoring Vivian to ensure she didn't leave. Reports noted her reclusive lifestyle, poor health, and no signs of preparing to relocate. To ensure legal integrity, the cold case unit verified the evidence chain of custody. Retired Lieutenant Mark Rourke, serving as an honorary consultant, confirmed the 1984 and 2008 seal signatures, proving continuity. On January 19, 2009, the federal arrest warrant was approved, authorizing the Pennsylvania State Police and Baltimore PD to arrest and interrogate Vivian within legal bounds. That day, the Pennsylvania Prosecutor's Office notified coordinating agencies. Vivian Arlo, residing in Maryland, is confirmed as directly linked to the Nancy Bell case. The federal arrest warrant is approved. Coordinate interrogation and extradition plans. A detailed operational plan was drafted, with 2 steps: arrest at her residence with legal representation present, followed by transfer to Pennsylvania for formal interrogation. The Harrisburg team and Baltimore PD set the action for early February, ensuring surprise and compliance with interstate extradition protocols. In the planning brief, Lena Porter was assigned to represent the cold case unit during the arrest and evidence verification. All DNA data, excavation maps, and dental reports were digitized and attached to the warrant as legal grounds. With all formalities complete, the Nancy Bell case, silent for over 4 decades, reached its most critical phase. The primary suspect was identified, the arrest warrant signed, and 2 states' agencies were ready to bring the woman named in the 1966 records back to face justice. On February 3, 2009, after the federal arrest warrant was approved, a joint Pennsylvania State Police and Baltimore PD team executed it at Vivian Arlo's suburban residence. She was arrested cooperatively, without resistance, and taken to Baltimore PD headquarters for interrogation. Due to her advanced age and frail health, the interrogation was conducted with a court-appointed lawyer present, fully recorded per regulations. The interrogation was split into 2 3-hour sessions, led by Lieutenant Charles Keegan of the Pennsylvania State Police and forensic technician Lena Porter. In the first session, when asked about her relationship with Nancy Bell, Vivian remained calm, speaking evenly, stating, "Nancy was just a neighbor girl. I barely knew her." When shown a 1966 photo from the Latrobe Community Center event, where they were seen talking, she paused briefly, then said, "I might have met her that day, but I don't recall clearly." After hearing the DNA evidence and remains discovery charges, Vivian fell silent for a long time. When pressed to explain, she offered a new story, contradicting prior statements. She claimed Nancy Bell came to her house on July 15, 1966, to ask about renting or finding a place. She said, "Nancy slipped and fell on the back stairs, hitting her head on a wooden step, causing immediate death." Asked why she didn't call police, Vivian replied, "I panicked. I lived alone and was afraid people would think I harmed her." She claimed she dug a small hole in the garden and temporarily buried the body out of uncertainty. Investigators recorded this fully, but noted immediate inconsistencies. First, the 1966 house map showed a short, 4-step staircase to the garden, insufficient to cause the severe skull trauma noted in the forensic report. Second, the remains were found over 8 meters from the back door, buried nearly a meter deep with compacted soil, indicating deliberate, calculated burial, not panic. When confronted with these details, Vivian gave evasive answers saying, "I might have misremembered the location, or it was too long ago." Keegan showed 2008 scene photos and asked why the tin box buried with the body contained Nancy's watch and ring. She replied, "I don't know about them, maybe she was carrying them." Asked why her DNA was on 1966 evidence, Vivian said, "I sat in her car to look for papers to contact her family. However, technical data showed her DNA on the blood-stained fabric and in the driver's compartment, not on the steering wheel or door." Keegan noted these locations suggested direct contact with the victim's blood. Vivian deflected, claiming, "The police might have mixed up samples." Asked if she carried a shovel to the backyard after the incident, she replied briefly, I often tended flowers. I don't recall. All responses were documented. The afternoon session focused on the timeline. When asked to confirm when Nancy left her house, Vivian said, before midnight, but community center witnesses confirmed Nancy left with her around 9:30 p.m. A 1966 neighbor reported seeing a light in the garden around 11 p.m. and a figure bending over the ground, consistent with the time after Nancy's disappearance. These contradictions led investigators to conclude Vivian's statements lacked consistency and suggested intentional minimization. When informed the skull autopsy showed Nancy was struck from behind with a hard object, not a fall, she remained silent, saying only, "I don't know anything about that." Throughout, Porter noted Vivian's unchanged demeanor, no panic, no emotion, steady voice and breathing, indicating high control. At the end, asked if she wanted to amend her statement, she said, "It happened so long ago, I don't remember clearly." Her statement was finalized with her and her lawyer's signatures. The 32-page audio, video, and handwritten transcript was copied in triplicate, sent to the Pennsylvania Prosecutor's Office, State Police, and Baltimore PD. In the February 7, 2009, summary to Harrisburg, Lieutenant Keegan concluded, Vivian Arlo's statement contains multiple inconsistencies regarding time, location, and cause of death. The described events do not align with forensic and scene data. Based on her demeanor, statements, and evidence, there is basis to conclude intentional minimization and concealment. The report noted, the interrogation followed federal protocols with legal oversight, fully recorded. Original and copies were delivered to the Pennsylvania Prosecutor's Office for prosecution review. After the interrogation, Vivian was detained in Baltimore pending transfer to Pennsylvania. In the day's final report, Porter noted briefly, after 43 years, the woman who denied all involvement finally admitted the victim's presence in her home, but no explanation can obscure the facts proven by forensic evidence. After Vivian Arlo's interrogation concluded, the remains and evidence related to victim Nancy Bell were sent to the Pennsylvania State Forensic Institute in Harrisburg for further analysis. The goal was to determine the specific cause of death, the time of occurrence, and to verify details from the suspect's statement. The forensic panel, led by Chief Examiner Dr. Robert Fallon, consisted of 3 experts. Analysis was conducted under strictly controlled temperature and humidity conditions to ensure maximum accuracy for evidence over 40 years old. The forensic report began with a detailed description of the skeletal structure. The remains were nearly intact, with high preservation and no disarticulated joints. Notably, the skull showed a large fracture running from the occipital to the left temporal region, approximately 8 centimeters long, with an average crack width of 3 millimeters. The fracture edges were clean, with no wear from secondary impacts. Using an electron microscope, Dr. Fallon confirmed signs of trauma occurring while the victim was alive, as the fracture margins showed microhemorrhaging and bone cell structures not fully degraded. Preliminary conclusion: the injury was caused by a blunt object striking directly with significant force, inconsistent with trauma from a fall or staircase slip, as claimed by Vivian Arlo. To identify the weapon, the team compared the fracture to impact models from various objects, hammers, shovels, metal rods, wooden logs, and found the crack's shape and indentation matched a flat, blunt-edged object, such as the back of a garden shovel. This was documented in the scientific report, supporting the hypothesis that the victim was attacked, not killed accidentally. Beyond the head injury, no other bones showed fractures or damage, indicating the fatal blow was the direct cause of death. Bone porosity and decomposition levels suggested burial occurred around midsummer 1966, aligning with Nancy's disappearance date. The Institute's Forensic Botany Lab analyzed soil from the burial site, finding a high concentration of spherical pollen grains, 25 micrometers, from Rosa rubiginosa, a climbing rose common in eastern Pennsylvania in the 1960s. Comparison with 1966 police photos of Vivian Arlo's garden confirmed these roses grew along her fence. Pollen, mixed into the burial soil, proved the body was interred in Vivian's garden not moved from elsewhere, ruling out the possibility that Nancy died elsewhere and was brought there. Control soil samples from the Loyal Hannah Creek area lacked this pollen, confirming the site's specificity. The report noted insect traces in the soil, primarily early-stage Calliphora vicina fly larvae. Analysis of their life cycle estimated burial within 24 hours of death. This, combined with the trauma pattern, supported the conclusion that Nancy Bell was attacked, died on site, and was buried almost immediately to conceal the crime. The accompanying artifacts were also examined. The ring and watch in the tin box were cleaned and inspected under a microscope. The ring showed slight wear inside, indicating long-term use, while the watch, stopped at 9:42, possibly matched the incident's timing. Weather data from 1966, no rain, warm temperatures on the night of Nancy's disappearance, suggested the burial occurred that same night. The Harrisburg Forensic Institute concluded, cause of death, skull trauma from a blunt object, striking with force from behind. No defensive wounds, soil, pollen, and entomological evidence confirmed the body was buried in Vivian Arlo's backyard within 24 hours of death. Nancy Bell's death resulted from a deliberate attack, not an accident. The 64-page report was sent to the Cold Case Unit and Pennsylvania Prosecutor's Office in late February 2009. All documents, images, and additional samples were filed under case number PA0804 Bell. In the transfer memo, Dr. Fallon noted, scientific findings confirm the act's intentionality. Evidence aligns with the suspect's admission of digging, but contradicts her account of the cause of death. The Cold Case Unit compiled the forensic results with prior interrogation records to prepare a prosecution file. On March 4, 2009, the Nancy Bell case was formally submitted to the Pennsylvania Prosecutor's Office with a recommendation to charge Vivian Arlo with second-degree murder and concealing a body. After over 40 years, scientific evidence filled gaps that human memory and statements could not, paving the way for the upcoming legal proceedings. Vivian Arlo's trial began in November 2009 at the Westmoreland County Courthouse, Pennsylvania, over 6 months after her arrest. The case drew significant attention as a decades-old disappearance resolved through modern DNA technology and the Cold Case Unit's efforts. Presiding Judge Ethel Moore, experienced with old criminal cases, oversaw the 12-day trial, including jury selection, evidence presentation, witness testimonies, and arguments between prosecution and defense. At the opening, Pennsylvania Chief Prosecutor Carol Matthews stated, "We are here not only to close a case, but to restore truth buried under soil for 43 years. Science has spoken, and the evidence cannot be denied." The prosecution charged Vivian Arlo with attacking Nancy Bell on the night of July 15, 1966, causing her death with an occipital blow and burying her body in her garden to conceal the act. Evidence was presented sequentially: crime scene photos, collected items, DNA results, forensic analysis, and the defendant's interrogation statements. First, the prosecution presented 1966 sealed evidence DNA results, confirming 2 female DNA sources, one matching Nancy Bell, the other Vivian Arlo, per CODIS data. Genetic charts were displayed, with Lena Porter explaining the sample recovery process, confirming an unbroken chain of custody from 1966 to 2008. She concluded, "There is no doubt Vivian Arlo was in Nancy Bell's car at the time of the incident." Next, forensic pathologist Dr. Robert Fallon testified, presenting 3D skull models to describe the occipital fracture caused by a direct downward blow from a blunt object. He stated, "This is not a fall injury, but a deliberate blow, with enough force to cause immediate death." This testimony was the case's strongest evidence, dismantling the defense's accident claim. The prosecution also presented 2008 GPR and excavation data, proving the burial site matched the 1966 neighbor's account of Vivian with a shovel. Photos of the NB's engraved ring and watch were shown to the jury, with forensic confirmation of their ownership by Nancy. On motive, the prosecution argued Vivian acted in anger or an unclear personal conflict, emphasizing her deliberate concealment and 40-year silence. The defense, led by public defender James Wilcox, maintained Nancy's death was an unintentional accident. Wilcox argued the incident occurred unwitnessed and his client acted out of panic. He stated, "Vivian Arlo carried that burden her whole life. She didn't flee justice, she was afraid." He questioned the DNA results' accuracy, suggesting 40-year storage could compromise data integrity. Forensic experts countered, confirming samples were properly sealed, signed, and stored under standard conditions. To rebut the staircase accident claim, the prosecution called Lieutenant Mark Rourke, who reviewed the case in 1984. He testified that the 1966 house map showed a low, four-step wooden staircase to the garden, insufficient for the fatal trauma described forensically. His testimony reinforced the logical chain between scientific evidence and investigative data. Throughout the trial, Vivian Arlo sat silently at the defense table, occasionally taking notes or looking down, showing no reaction to presented evidence. When allowed to speak, she said briefly, "I didn't mean to harm her. I was wrong not to speak sooner." This was recorded, but did not sway the prosecution. In closing, Prosecutor Matthews stated, "We cannot change what happened, but we can restore justice." 43 years of silence end today. The trial entered deliberation on the afternoon of November 25th. The 12-person jury was tasked with reviewing all evidence: DNA results, forensic reports, witness statements, and historical documents. They deliberated privately for over 5 hours. The courtroom was quiet, with only the ticking clock and golden light through the windows. When the jury returned, Judge Moore confirmed a unanimous verdict was reached. The brief verdict echoed in the silent room. "We find the defendant Vivian Arlo guilty of second-degree murder and concealing a body." The verdict was recorded at 5:42 p.m. Arlo showed no clear emotion, sitting upright, hands on the table, eyes lowered. Defense attorney James Wilcox requested a private meeting with his client post-trial and filed for leniency due to her age and health. Judge Moore allowed consideration for sentencing, but stated, "The court fully reviewed scientific evidence and witness testimony. A murder, even decades old, cannot be erased." On the morning of December 2nd, the sentencing hearing resumed. The courtroom was quieter, with only prosecutors, jurors, attorneys, and local press present. Prosecutor Carol Matthews proposed 25 years imprisonment based on penalties for second-degree murder and body concealment. Wilcox reiterated leniency, noting the client is elderly, poses no danger, and cooperated during the investigation. After deliberation, Judge Moore sentenced Arlo to 20 years in a Pennsylvania correctional facility, with parole eligibility after 15 years for medical reasons. He concluded, "Time does not alter a crime's nature. Concealing the truth for 4 decades denied justice, and today's sentence affirms that justice, though delayed, must be served." Vivian Arlo was escorted from the courtroom silently. Outside, a small group of Latrobe residents waited, many holding Nancy Bell's photos as a memorial. No family members survived to witness the verdict, but a cold case unit representative read a letter from a distant relative. "Though the past cannot be changed, today's truth shows every effort for justice matters." Post-sentencing, the Pennsylvania State Police and Cold Case Unit released a 96-page Nancy Bell case summary in early 2010, deeming it one of the longest unresolved cases solved by DNA evidence in the state. The report's introduction, by the Cold Case Unit director, stated, "The Nancy Bell case proves the value of evidence preservation, investigator persistence, and forensic science in restoring justice." It detailed the timeline from Nancy's 1966 disappearance, stalled investigations, evidence storage, to DNA application over 40 years later. The case became a model in Pennsylvania's training programs for cold case evidence management and processing. From 2011, the Nancy Bell file was incorporated into the Cold Case Unit's annual training for investigators and forensic technicians, studying evidence chain management, scene documentation, and applying new technology to old data. Copies of original scene photos Excavation maps and DNA reports were archived in the State Forensic Library as illustrative materials. The final cold case unit evaluation highlighted 3 points. First, the case underscored the importance of evidence integrity over time. Second, it proved criminal accountability is possible despite time's passage. Third, it set a legal precedent for reopening similar cases with DNA evidence. The Pennsylvania State Police shared the report with Ohio, Maryland, and New York, recommending cold case reviews using federal DNA databases. The report was presented at the 2011 National Forensic Association's annual conference as a practical study on long-term investigation efficacy. Legally, the Nancy Bell case reinforced Pennsylvania's no statute of limitations for murder principle and expanded the use of historical DNA evidence in state courts. It also marked a milestone in federal cooperation between Pennsylvania and Maryland law enforcement, establishing protocols for interstate cold case investigations. Operationally, the report concluded that success depended not only on technological advances, but also on proper data preservation and investigator persistence. Lieutenant Mark Rourke, whose 1984 note foresaw DNA's potential, spoke at the cold case unit's closing ceremony, saying, "I didn't think my note would become a prophecy. Every case has its voice. We just need the tools and time to hear it." His words were quoted in the state report as a message for future investigators. In late 2010, the Nancy Bell file was closed with a cover note. Case closed. Conviction achieved. Retained for training and historical reference. At the Harrisburg Cold Case Unit archive, the original evidence box remains, labeled in red with Lena Porter's handwritten note, Nancy Bell, the case that spoke again. The case closed after 43 years, not just with a conviction but as a testament to science, human perseverance, and the belief that justice, though delayed, can always be found. The story of Nancy Bell's case, a young woman who vanished in 1966 in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, is not only a relentless and grueling investigative journey, but also a reflection of profound values for modern American society. From Chief Harold Denton's meticulous preservation of evidence in the rudimentary conditions of the 1960s to Lena Porter's use of advanced DNA technology over 40 years later to revive a case thought forgotten, the story shows that truth and justice never lose value, only requiring patient seekers. In a nation where faith in the legal system and science is paramount, the Nancy Bell case reminds us that technological progress, like DNA analysis or the CODIS database, gains meaning only when paired with human responsibility and integrity. Had Denton not documented meticulously, or Rourke not left his 1984 note about potential DNA application in the future, the case might have remained a dusty file. In today's fast-paced, often forgetful American society, this story underscores that persistence, professional standards, and belief in the value of small details remain the foundation for upholding justice, ethics, and transparency. Every individual, whether police, scientist, or citizen, can learn that doing the right thing, however small or without immediate results, can become pivotal for monumental change. Justice may arrive late, but it comes to those who never stop seeking it. Thank you for following the Nancy Bell case, a testament that justice, buried for over 4 decades, can be found through perseverance and the power of truth. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to join us in exploring more cold cases where the past still has a story to tell.